Daniel wasn't surprised by the decree. It just gave his routine an expiration date. Everyone remembers the lions, but the real decision was made long before anyone heard a roar. It happened in a room Daniel wasn't in, because this didn't start with danger. It started with design. The law appeared overnight, 30 days. No prayers to anyone except the king. No exceptions. No reversals. Not even the king could undo it. Which sounds powerful. Until you realize how useful that becomes and if it was planned, because this wasn't a general rule, it was precise. Built to catch one person, Daniel, the outsider who didn't play the same game. No corruption, no leverage, no mistakes, which made him untouchable. And that was the problem. So they stopped looking for flaws and started looking for patterns. They found one. Daniel prayed, not occasionally, not privately enough to disappear, consistently, predictably, unchanged. And that was enough. Because the law didn't need to chase him, it only needed him to stay the same. It's a familiar move, change the policy, wait for the one person who can't comply, then call it enforcement, not targeting. And this is where the story stops being about lions, because this was never about prayer. Prayer was just the entry point. This was about control, who defines it, who enforces it, and what happens when someone refuses to adjust to it. By the time Daniel heard the decree, the outcome was already set. The den was still empty. The verdict already had teeth, and Daniel knew it. That's what makes this part dangerous. Not that he was in trouble, but that he understood exactly how the system worked and chose not to move. No panic, no negotiation, no adjustment. The law shifted. Daniel didn't. And that's all the system needed, because they weren't waiting for him to fail. They were waiting for him to stay the same. The trap didn't need to close. It was already sealed. Daniel didn't break the law. He just refused to adjust. That was enough, because the decree didn't need chaos. It needed contrast, and Daniel created it immediately. He went home. Same window, same time, same routine. No attempt to hide. He prayed. No announcement. No reaction to the law. No visible concern. From his perspective, nothing changed. From theirs, everything did. Because when everyone adapts, the one who doesn't becomes visible. Not by effort, by difference, and difference is easy to isolate. It's a familiar pattern. A new rule comes in. Everyone adjusts just enough to stay safe. Except one person. Not because they're resisting, because they never depended on the rule in the first place. That's when the problem starts. Because now it's not about compliance, it's about exposure. Daniel didn't argue with the decree. He didn't challenge it. He didn't try to work around it. He simply ignored its authority over his routine. Which is worse, because systems are designed to respond to resistance. They don't know what to do with consistency, especially when that consistency proves the system can't change the person. And this is where consistency becomes a threat. Not because it is loud, but because it is predictable. And predictable behavior doesn't need to be chased. It only needs to be confirmed. By the time they report back, there is no discussion. They saw him. Exactly where expected. Exactly when expected. Doing exactly what they knew he would do. That was the plan. Not to catch him off guard, but to prove that he wouldn't change. And now they had it. Clear, simple, final. Daniel wasn't just part of the system anymore. He was evidence against it. And once someone becomes evidence, the outcome stops being flexible. No more waiting, no more testing, no more doubt, because they were never waiting for him to fail. They were waiting for him to stay the same. And now he had. Which means the system didn't need time anymore. It had proof. And now when it could move. The problem wasn't Daniel. It was that he didn't fail. That made him dangerous. High performance. Growing envy. Silent alignment. Nothing public. Nothing obvious. Just pressure building where no one could see it. Because Daniel wasn't just doing well. He was doing better. Consistently. Without slipping. Without creating problems. Without giving anyone a reason to question him. Which sounds ideal. Until it starts exposing everyone else. Same position, same system, different results. That's where things shift. Because now it's not about effort. It's about comparison. And comparison doesn't stay neutral. It turns personal. Fast. Because results are easy to measure and hard to explain when they don't match. It's a familiar pattern. Someone performs better than everyone else, and suddenly the rules begin to change. Not officially, not openly, but strategically. Because performance is impressive until it becomes inconvenient. And Daniel had become inconvenient, not because he disrupted the system, because he didn't depend on it. That's what made him difficult to control, and control is what mattered. So the focus changed. Not how to improve, how to remove. They didn't need accusations, they didn't need conflict, they didn't need a mistake. They already had something more reliable, a system they could use, and a man who wouldn't adjust. That was enough, because the system didn't need to break Daniel, it only needed to position him. And this is where excellence becomes a threat, not because it is loud, but because it refuses to lower itself. Daniel didn't resist, he didn't argue, he didn't challenge authority, he simply remained consistent, and that made him predictable. And predictable behavior is easy to plan around. By the time everything is aligned, nothing is uncertain. The law is already signed. The pattern is already confirmed. The group is already in agreement. All that's left is execution, and the king doesn't see it. Not completely, because from his perspective, this is just structure, just order, just authority being reinforced. From theirs, it's something else, leverage, and they use it, because they were never trying to change Daniel. They were building something that would work because he wouldn't. And now there is nothing left to delay it. The system is ready. And it is already moving. The most dangerous thing that night wasn't inside the den. It was the decision that put him there. Irreversible decree. A king who couldn't undo it. A system already in motion. No delay, no exception, no way back. Because once the law was signed, it stopped being a choice. It became a consequence. Daniel is brought in. No resistance, no argument, no attempt to negotiate. That part is already over. The pattern was confirmed. The law was clear. The outcome was expected. He is lowered into the den. The stone is rolled into place, sealed. From the outside, everything looks resolved. From the inside, nothing is. Because the real tension isn't in the den. It's in the one who signed it. The king returns to the palace, but nothing follows him back. No music, no comfort, no distraction, just awareness. Because this is what happens when a decision can't be undone. It stops being strategy and becomes responsibility. It's a familiar moment. Approving something that makes sense on paper and realizing too late what it actually does. Because now it's no longer theory, it's waiting. And waiting creates pressure. The lions are still, the palace isn't. Because the danger isn't movement, it's consequence. And this is where power realizes it lost control. Not because someone resisted it, but because it committed to something it cannot reverse. The king tries to create distance, he fasts, refuses comfort, avoids distraction. As if removing everything around him could reduce what's already been set in motion. It doesn't. Because the system doesn't pause. It doesn't reconsider. It continues. Exactly as designed. The lions don't need to act. The law already has. Because the weight of this moment isn't physical, it's internal. It's knowing the result is already on its way, and there is nothing left to negotiate. No authority left to use, no decision left to make. The king had control when he signed. Now he only has time, and time doesn't fix anything. It reveals it. Morning is coming, not to bring relief, but to expose the result. Daniel walks out of the den, alive, untouched, exactly the part everyone remembers. The miracle, the survival, the moment that feels like the end of the story, but it isn't. Because the system doesn't stop when Daniel survives, it continues, exactly as it was written. The king rushes to the den at first light, not as a ruler, as someone hoping he didn't make an irreversible mistake. He calls out, not commanding, asking, and that alone tells you everything changed, because the same voice that signed the decree is now waiting for an answer from inside it. Daniel responds, calm, clear, alive. No panic, no urgency, just confirmation. And in that moment, the narrative shifts. Not emotionally, structurally, because survival doesn't cancel the law. It triggers the rest of it. And this is where the story becomes uncomfortable, because what happens next isn't interruption, it's continuation. The accusers are brought forward, no investigation, no appeal, no reinterpretation, the same decree, the same structure, the same outcome. Only the names change because the system doesn't adapt, it executes. And once it starts executing, it doesn't ask who built it, it doesn't ask who deserves it, it simply applies. The trap doesn't disappear, it rotates. And this time it doesn't miss. The lions move, fast, decisive, no hesitation, because they were never uncertain. Only the timing was, and now the timing is complete. The system worked perfectly, just not in the direction it was intended. And that's the part most people skip, because it forces a different conclusion. Daniel didn't defeat the system. He didn't outmaneuver it. He didn't dismantle it. He simply didn't adapt to it. And that exposed everything. Because the moment someone refuses to bend, the structure around them becomes visible. And once it's visible, it loses its illusion. The law remains, the power remains, the mechanism remains. But the narrative changes. It's no longer control, it's exposure. Because what looked stable was only untested. And this is where the story loops back. It was never about the lions. Not really. It was about the decision made before them. The trap wasn't the den. It was the law. And the law didn't protect anyone. It revealed everyone.